Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I am breaking down our next matchup for UFC 321. In this one, we have Chris Barnett taking on Hamdy Abdelwahab. Barnett is 23-9 as a professional, 2-3 in his last five fights. Meanwhile, Hamdy is 4-1 as a professional and is currently 3-1-1 in his total five fights. Or I guess I should say in his career, because those are really only his five fights. For Barnett, he's been trading wins and losses in the UFC and not been the most active. His latest fight was roughly 4 years ago against Ben Rothwell, which he lost via submission. Then he got that spectacular spinning wheel kick against Dina Venata, which was roughly over 3 years ago. Then lost to Martin Budai via technical decision. His last win was against Jake Collier, which was roughly a little over 2 years ago. Since then, injuries and Achilles tear has plagued Chris Barnett. I'm surprised he actually ever came back to the UFC, because an Achilles tear is no joke, man. That ends a lot of careers. But he eventually came back at UFC 308 and got destroyed by Kenny Nzechukwu. And it was a bit of a weird fight because I know Chris Barnett jumped and then messed his hamstring up or something. But now he comes back about a year later to take on Hamdy. For Hamdy, he's 1-1-1 in the UFC. He made his debut about 3 years ago against Dontel Mays, he won via split decision, but then got turned to a no contest once he got popped for, what was it, EPO or something like that. Then in his most recent fights, he actually has fought this year. He fought Jamal Pose in February, won via split decision in a pretty terrible fight. But I know some people thought Jamal Pose won. It is what it is. Then most recently lost to Muhammad Usman this July in that card in Azerbaijan. Boy, if things have gone differently, Hamdy would be like 2-0 or 0-3 in the UFC. It could have gone much, much differently for Hamdy than what he has right now. Oh my God. Picking a winner for this fight is a lot trickier than I feel like it needs to be. Because the thing about Chris Barnett is he's 5'9" with a 75-inch reach at heavyweight. Really, the dude is just an obese 5'9" guy who theoretically really should be fighting at like middleweight. But at the same time, as a fan, I love Chris Barnett. He's a very fun guy. I mean, how many like 265-pound fighters do you know of his size and stature are throwing spinning wheel kicks that actually land on their opponents? Not many. That's the thing about Chris Barnett, is like he is deceptively explosive and athletic. Same with when he did against Jake Collier. Now he only got hurt in that fight, but eventually he was able to hurt Collier and won via ground and pound. As I said, Chris Barnett is pretty explosive. He usually comes in with just these sudden big overhand rights, these big spinning kicks. He's pretty dexterous, like these Taekwondo style kicks he has. Everything about Chris Barnett is like an enigma to me, because, like I said, this man should probably be fighting at middleweight. He has missed weight at heavyweight, which boggles the mind. But then he's, like I said, throwing spinning wheel kicks, doing backflips, and all that stuff. Now he ain't doing that no more with that Achilles tear that he suffered through, but he's just an enigma to me. Meanwhile, Hamdy, he's a pretty basic meat and potatoes fighter. Now he fought in the Olympics in wrestling for his country, Egypt. So he does have the wrestling base. And I think he's overall has some fundamental boxing. You saw in his most recent fight with Jamal Pokes and Muhammad Usman. And, Muhammad Usman might be popping for, performance enhancers himself. I don't know. I just know that might be why he didn't fight Walter Walker 2 weeks ago. So, but Hamdy overall, I think, has meat and potatoes game. Some good wrestling. I don't think his wrestling is as elite as it really should be with his credentials, but it was enough to take down Jamal Pogues, win against Dontel Mays. But I mean, really, those two have terrible wrestling in defense. So, And like I said, some basic fundamental striking that at least gets him to the finish line and, gets him wins. If Chris Barnett wasn't 39, and like I said, suffered not only that Achilles tear that took him off, that put him on the shelf for over 2 years, but also that hamstring injury or that leg injury he suffered to Kenny Jetsuku at UFC 308. I would be inclined to pick him just for the hell, just because I just don't know really what I think of Hamdy. I mean, like I said, he has some skills, but I feel like a lot of other heavyweights are kind of going to chew him apart. And Chris Barnett is so deceptive that I could see his power hurting Hamdy. But with age, the inactivity, the injuries, and overall the style of Chris Barnett, not really suited to go 3 rounds. And Hamdy, for all the flack I'm giving it, is a good 3-round fighter. He can put in 15 minutes of solid work. I just think this is Hamdy's fight to lose. Now, odds-wise, they suck. Minus 400 for Hamdy, plus 300 for Barnett. I don't think Hamdy should ever be a 4-1 favorite against anybody, but he is today. And, I'm sure some people are thinking, like, man, why is this guy so hard on Hamdy Abdelwahab? It's just because there's nothing spectacular about the dude. Getting wins in the UFC, congratulations. But, he could have lost that Jamal Pose fight. He, had to cheat to win against Dontel Mays, and then he lost to Muhammad Usman. Now, granted, I think Muhammad Usman is a decent heavyweight. And as I've said, Hamdy, could get better. He's got a simple approach, but, sometimes simplicity really is the best. You don't need all the fancy stuff that, like, Chris Barnett throws. Sometimes you can literally just win with a jab and a double leg. Sometimes it's all you need, especially at heavyweight. But I got to go with Hamdy. I think he's going to win the decision here. I think he's going to take down Chris Barnett for good portions of the fight, kind of press him against the cage, not really give Chris Barnett any real chance to work or go for his spinning attacks nor his big lunge and strikes. I think he's going to corral Chris Barnett for a majority of the fight and just give him absolutely no space to work. That's really all you really need to beat Chris Barnett. You don't give him any space to work, and you can't really get any of his explosiveness going, nor his creativity. And I think that's what Hamdy is going to do in this fight, especially being, as big as he is, 6'2" with the 73-inch reach. Now, granted, Chris Barnett is a small guy in just about every fight he has at heavyweight, and this is no exception. So I think this is Hamdy's fight, and I think he's going to win a 30-27 decision. I can see Chris Barnett hurting him at times in the fight, and maybe even sneaking in a good high kick or two, or one of his overhand rights. But I think Hamdy should have a very simplistic game plan to beat him, corral him against the fence, go for the clinch, go for the takedown, and overall just never let Chris Barnett get out of first gear. So officially, I am picking Hamdy Abdelwahab via unanimous decision. But that being said, that's been my breakdown of this fight. If you liked the video, comment and subscribe. Next up, we have my sleeper of the card and quite possibly the best fight on the prelims, or maybe even the whole card. We have Jose Delgado taking on Nathaniel Wood. I'm super excited to talk about that fight. But until then, I have been Bo from Brutal Commentary, and thank you all for listening. Take care.